What's up, guys? So last night I was listening to some commentary from a content creator, and the ring culture topic was the main message. But I kept seeing responses talking about how Michael Jordan didn't win anything without Scottie Pippen. We know the old tired narrative. And as a Jordan fan, it didn't bother me, but it made me stop and think. I did a video on this in the early days of GOATcast Hoops, where I basically was saying Pippen is the only player that really at times hurts Jordan's case for the GOAT because they played alongside each other. He's, of course, a legend. And the fact is, Jordan didn't really start winning championships until he got there. That's 100% facts. We see it in the data. As always, hindsight is always 2020. So I'm not here to refute those facts. But when we talk about Jordan, the Bulls, and their 6 rings, Jordan had Pippen comments really a truthful selling point. I mean, I see creators out there mad when we say Jordan won 6 rings instead of the Bulls won 6 rings. And everything goes back to championships being a team success, which it absolutely is. But I tend to see hypocrisy when it comes to Bill Russell's 11 rings, the 2016 Cleveland Cavs victory. I'm sure there's more examples, but those are instances where it seems okay for the team to take the back seat to their superstar player. With all that said, I ask, why? Jordan seems to be one of the major, greatest of all time candidates that gets penalized for playing with another legendary or other great players. He's not the only one. You see it happen to Magic, Kareem, and even Duncan. So we're going to get into some numbers of some other greats and the guys they played along with. Before we get too far, please smash the like button and please subscribe to the channel. We're getting really close to 3,000 subs, and we would greatly appreciate if you could help us get there. Okay, so let's look at the numbers of Jordan and Scottie during their championship playoffs. Okay, we see Jordan, 31.3 points per game, rebounds, everything. So we see all that in total 118 games. And then we look at Pippen's numbers. Through those championship years, he averaged 18.1 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. All the, stats are there. Percentages as far as field goals, 3-point, free throws show that, Scottie wasn't the most efficient guy on the court. Kind of struggled in that area where Jordan was a little bit better. But we see the numbers. These are the Chicago Bulls through their 6 championships. We know 91 through 93 and 96 through 98. So this is what they were putting up. Pippen's numbers, he'd most likely be an all-star with these numbers. Nothing too crazy, but obviously, there's context to it, and there's other factors that weigh into this. But we're just going to look at the raw numbers right here, and we see how Scottie was helping Michael Jordan in these situations. So we see those, but let's look at some other legends and their numbers compared to their, I hate to use this word, but sidekicks, or 1A and 1B. So how about one of the most famous duos, Shaq and Kobe, which has been a hot topic throughout all of the YouTube streets these last couple of months or so about, Kobe being a sidekick, whatever. However you feel, that's how you feel. But let's look at their three-peat numbers. Not terrible. Both of them really solid numbers. Through 57 games, say if Shaq wasn't a part of that, Kobe's numbers would likely be finals MVP level numbers. So, you can't really push him aside as a sidekick too much. We know what Shaq was in those days. He was pure dominance. And I think that in some ways that helped Kobe's numbers, because you had to focus your attention on trying to stop Shaq. Like, he was one of those players that were just a magnet when it came to your defense. You had to try to keep him, from just purely destroying your team. So Kobe had, he had some area to work. But we see those numbers, absolutely all-star level numbers during the playoffs, maybe even all NBA type numbers. You see his defense was solid too. He had steals, blocks. So, good numbers. But how about Mr. James himself, LeBron James, and his sidekicks throughout his 4 championships. We're only dealing with the 4 championships. We're not dealing with finals and all of that. We want to know what he had when he actually won. So we were going to 2012 and 2013, where he had D Wade as his sidekick or 1B, then Kyrie in 2016 for that monumental 3-1 comeback. Those numbers are what they are. You see them. And then he had Anthony Davis for his last championship in 2020 during the obviously weird situation that COVID was. So, I mean, we see those numbers and he had some help. Let's just say that. And finally, let's talk about maybe one of the more famous duos that people don't really harp on too much. And that's Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. One of the few duos, I feel, who were considered 1A and 1B, shifting throughout the years. You know, their placement would kind of, one would be a finals MVP or MVP level. The other would be in the running, but, the other guy would kind of lock that down. So you see the numbers. Magic was phenomenal. Kareem, although he was nearing the end of his career, was still putting up very solid numbers. And you look at them and they were just a phenomenal duo. That's all you can say, which we'll talk about later, but shouldn't hurt their greatness. That's all I'm going to say. But we're going to talk about that in a little while. So looking through those numbers, Scottie was definitely a special player beside the GOAT himself. But was he a game changer, as some like to say? We see the numbers Kobe put up. Definitely a key to Shaq's dominance. LeBron has some serious help securing those 4 rings. We love to give him his props for all that he did during those series, but by evidence of his sidekicks numbers, he has significant help securing Larry O'Brien. And Magic and Kareem were the perfect blend of offense and defense, and a yin and yang when it came to securing easy buckets. So what about in the final, when it really matters? Let's show the numbers for Mike and Scottie. There you go. You look at the scoring, of course, that was Jordan's bread and butter. He was a scorer. Pippen was more of a defender, a Swiss Army knife, which is common for small forwards to kind of do it all, especially as we reach to this more modern era of basketball where different positions took on different roles or added roles to their to what they did. So you see the numbers. Pippen, again, not the most efficient guy, but was very helpful and put up numbers that were comparable to all-star levels, and was what he was doing at that time. And say what you want, his numbers, along with Jordan's numbers, helped bring home 6 championships, 2 3-peats. So what he did was extremely important to those Chicago Bulls teams. And as you can see, those were what he averaged throughout those finals. But how about Kobe and Shaq? While Shaq brought home 3 finals MVPs for that 3-peat, Kobe put up numbers worthy of the award under almost any other circumstance. I mean, you could make a case for Kobe if it just wasn't for the sheer eye sample of seeing what Shaq was doing out there on the court. So we see the numbers. Kobe's numbers are quite phenomenal, and Shaq's numbers are quite impressive. So those guys were doing it, and they were legends. They were a great 1-2 punch, a great duo. So let's swing over to LeBron James, and his crew were problems. D Wade, a former Finals MVP, kept up his part of the bargain and was a key contributor. Kyrie put up Finals MVP-worthy numbers alongside LeBron's monster numbers. We're not going to take anything away from LeBron in 2016. He was a beast, but Kyrie was definitely holding it down as the 1B. And AD, well, I'm going to say it, he got snubbed for Finals MVPs because those numbers offensively and defensively are insane. Guys that he won chips with, and you see that they were very much a prominent piece to what made him a 4-time champion. Magic and Kareem's numbers read like a perfect blend of 2 stars that just get the best out of each other. Each of their strong suits helped the Lakers keep raising Larry O'Brien. Of course, Magic got 3 Finals MVPs during that time. Kareem only got 1, but they were all important to what those Lakers were doing, and they both deserved their accolades and awards because they were the perfect blend of what a point guard distributor is and what a big man should be. So he was the perfect guy to get Kareem the ball in the places he needs the ball or where he wants the ball. And Kareem was good enough, even at an advanced age, to put the ball in the basket. So great numbers. But let's look at another. Let's look at Bill Russell himself with Sam Jones, who he won 10 titles with. Here we see that while Bill was very much the catalyst to those championships, he may not have brought home as many without the scoring punch and prowess Sam Jones was able to provide for most of them. And you can see that through those numbers. I'm not taking anything from Bill Russell. This isn't the point of this video. I'm just showing that great players have great players right beside them. And that should not, again, kind of put a damper on their greatness or hinder their greatness in any way. And of course, I know sometimes numbers don't always give the full context. That's hard to do without taking hours putting this all together. But let's say, for those that want to say Pippen did more for those chips, like Horace Grant wanted to say for one of the chips, I forgot which year he said that, Pippen was the one that won him the championship. And maybe he did, but, numbers don't lie. But let's look at Pippen's bread and butter, his defense, and who we took on, especially in those finals. Because maybe that tells a different story. Maybe Mike had it easy and Pippen had to do all the heavy lifting elsewhere. 91. We famously know the story. Mike in game 2 was taken off of Magic as his assignment and Pippen was put on. But if you looked at that series, he and Mike both guarded Magic Johnson. And while y'all want to make it seem that Jordan couldn't guard him and Pippen had to replace him for that reason, game 2, Jordan was in foul trouble. So he had to be off of Magic because, as you know, he is their main offensive guy, and you don't want the guy that gets you buckets having to sit out because he fouls out. So you naturally are going to move your defenders. If you watch the whole series, Jordan went back to Magic game 3 through 5, although they kind of took turns from that point because I'm sure Phil Jackson saw that what Pippen was doing was working against Magic. Pippen obviously is a little taller than Jordan, and he's just as quick laterally as I feel as Jordan, and he's got some quick hands and can stick you and can stay on you. He's a great on-ball defender. When I did my highly defensive Pippen versus Jordan, I picked Pippen to be the superior defender. So I do feel like he is slightly superior to Jordan in regards to their defense. So, it only makes sense for Pippen to spend time on the best player who is a perimeter player on the opposing team. So in 92, again, Phil had the luxury of putting their 2 highly effective defenders on another perimeter great, as Jordan and Pippen guarded Clyde Drexler in stretches. Pippen also guarded Jerome Kersey at times. So as you see, Phil took action when needed, switched between those 2 guys when it was necessary. In 93, Jordan mainly guarded Dan Marley, sometimes Kevin Johnson in spurts, but mainly Marley. Pippen had Richard Dumas, but also helped Horace Grant with reining in Charles Barkley, who was the MVP. And for long stretches, Pippen would kind of take over as the main defender of Charles. He was guarding the NBA MVP level Barkley. 96, Jordan mainly guarded Hersey Hawkins. I know people are going to be like, ooh, Hersey Hawkins, he was a solid player, solid perimeter player. Pippen spent a lot of time on Gary Payton, but so did Jordan in stretches, especially later on in the series. He would guard Payton some. They started putting Pippen as more of a roamer, so he was guarding, their 1 through 4, showing you his range as a defender. Because the Bulls were at that time such a defensive juggernaut. They had Ron Harper, they had Dennis Rodman. Tony Kukoc, he did his thing, but they had so many guys they could throw out there and they could almost switch everything because they weren't only big wings, Jordan, Harper, Pippen, Kukoc, Dennis Rodman wasn't your typical, he wasn't a center, but in small lineups, he could guard the opposing team's big man because he was just that tenacious on defense. So they had the luxury of that. And Pippen played a huge part in that. And of course, 97, 98. So I'll say even on that side of the ball, Pippen was a huge and phenomenal asset to the Bulls, but he shined because he didn't have to shoulder all the offensive load and add his superior defense to help Jordan's Bulls claim chip after chip. So, it was a give and take kind of thing. Jordan, while he would guard the best perimeter player in spurts, he couldn't do it all night. You needed his scoring punch, especially when those third and fourth quarters came around. If those games were close, you needed Jordan to be fresh enough, especially in that second three-peat when he was in his 30s, in his prime, but he lost a little. His step wasn't as quick as it once was in the 80s and early 90s. So they needed his punch, especially during those closeout moments. And they couldn't afford for him to be just tired from chasing these guys around all over the place, especially these little guards that are quick guys. So that's where Pippen really shined. And we saw it, and that's a part of his legend. Both their legends. But one thing we don't hear hardly ever is this. Without a 20-point per game player on the court, LeBron wouldn't have won anything. You don't hear that. Or Magic Johnson without Kareem can't win anything. Or Bill Russell needed Sam Jones or Bob Cousy or John Havlicek to win those championships. The main thing we hear is Jordan can't win without Pippen. And guess what? By the numbers shown and the history we can revisit, all of those are true. They're true. LeBron needed Wade's 22.6 and 19.6 points a game to win in 2012 and 2013. Of course, Kyrie's and AD's big numbers in 2016 and 2020. Magic needed Kareem's help to secure rings. Shaq needed Kobe's all-star level numbers to secure chips. Michael Jordan needed Scottie Pippen to three-peat twice. None of these facts should hold anyone's individual greatness back. So when Jordan says, whenever they speak of me, they should speak Scottie Pippen, it's a lesson in knowing true greatness can never be achieved alone. There's always something or someone to help you reach that level. And that's all I have to say.